Well, hello again everyone, welcome to the next tutorial. Next one up is the pre-flight procedure for the first officer. Pre-flight procedure for the first officer starts on the aft or forward overhead panel, and it works in a scan flow from top left to bottom right in a motion like so. So starting off then, because this will normally only take a first officer a couple of minutes, but as we're going through each light and everything individually, just to make sure that you're clear with everything that you're looking for, it will take a little bit longer. So feel free to skip this if you're already familiar with it. So starting with the top left then, the flight control panel. The flight control switches are guarded and closed. The flight spoiler switches are guarded and closed. Your damper switch would normally be off and the light would be on, and as soon as you switch the yaw damper switch to on, your damper light should go out. Verify standby hydraulic low quantity, low pressure and standby rudder light are all extinguished. Alternate flaps position switch off, and the field differential pressure, speed trim fail, Mach trim fail lights are all off. Down to the navigation panel, these are all set to normal. Displays panel again to normal, and the source to auto, and the engine and spar valves for the fuel are all dimly lit. So the way this works, dimly lit means it is exactly what it says on the tin, so the valves are closed. Once they illuminate bright, it's the disagree light, or the valve is in transit, and then out means the valves then open. So moving down onto the fuel panel, so we do have center tank fuel, but we don't put the center tank switches on unless there is greater than 460 kilos in the center tank. Forward fuel pump is on with the low pressure light extinguished because we are running the APU, so that should be correct. If there was greater than 460, we would run the left center tank pump, and then that saves getting the fuel in balance before we go flying. Moving up to the electrical panel, we want the battery switch, which should already be down and covered. Cabin util and the IFE switches are on. Standby power guarded. Verify that the standby power light is extinguished. Battery discharge light is extinguished. The TR unit light is extinguished and the elect light is extinguished. Bus transfer switch. Guard is closed. So here, gen off bus because the engines aren't running. The APU is running. The source off lights are extinguished. Next would be the fire test, which is a little bit difficult to run with this because you need to press simultaneous things, so I'll show that in a different video. APU is already running. Light is set, so equipment cooling, supply and exhaust fans are both in normal. Emergency exit lights guard is closed. Have the fuel that we require, so seatbelt signs on. Moving up to the window heat, so window heat switches on and verify that the on lights illuminate. Probe heat is selected to off and the lights are illuminated. Wing anti-ice off. Verify the valve open lights are extinguished. Engine anti-ice, verify the cowl lights are extinguished and the valve open lights are extinguished. So again, all dark here. Engine hydraulic pump switches. So the engine hydraulic pump switches are on the outside, so they're on. The electrical hydraulic pump switches are off, and all the low pressure lights are illuminated. Okay, so try to make this a little bit realistic. So forward and aft entry doors are open for the passengers, and the cargo is being loaded. Moving up, trim air switch on. Somewhere sensible to set these in real life is AUT, so that one to A, that one to U, that seems to work. Recirc fans, both selected to auto, with the APU running, so we can select APU to on. We will then get the dual bleed light, because the left side, even though the engine isn't running, you'll still get the left bleed air switch on. And then we can select auto to run the packs with bleed air pressure, and the isolation valve is open to feed both sides, both packs from the APU. Okay, next on to the pressurization panel. So we are climbing to 37,000 feet. And the landing altitude in Ibiza, 24 feet. So the nearest 50 increment to that is 0. Pressurization in auto, and all lights extinguished. Moving on down to the lighting panel, all lights are off, APU's running, start selectors in off, and normally outbound leg we use the ignition on the right. Logo light was daytime, so we don't need that on. Position lights, anti-cowl off, wing and wheel well light off. Down to the mode control panel. Course is set, it's runway 27. Course 268 set. Flight director. Okay, so the flight directors will normally be on first for the pilot flying, so we'll assume the captain flying. So captain's flying, flight director on, you get master on this side, and then you can put your own on. EFIS control panel, minimums reference selector to Barrow, flight path vector as required, that's meters. So you'll see down here on the altimeter, if you select that, you get also the equivalent in meters. Barometric reference selector, well, we use hectopascals. QNH 1017. At this point we would put the reference selector to 1,000 feet above aerodrome level, so 622 at Bristol. So you'll see this moving up here on the Barrow. So Barrow set to 1622. BOR switches, so ADF for the BRI NDB. VOR selected, and airports. You see airport then comes up here. I'll show you the airports when you depart. Mode selector is already selected to map, and the range usually for takeoff 10 or less. Weather radar's off. And then we move to the oxygen. Oxygen test panel. Press the emergency press to test and the test reset switch together. Press and hold for 5 seconds. And whilst you're holding those, check the crew oxygen pressure to make sure that doesn't drop below or drop by 100 psi. Second flight of the day, or subsequent flights after the first. Press both together just long enough to see the oxygen's flowing here, and once again a glance up here just to make sure that the oxygen pressure hasn't dropped. Next up, checking the clock for the time. Main panel display and lower DU both set to norm. Disengage light test, so this has 2 positions, up is 1, so press and hold. You should get 3 amber. Let that go, the lights will go out. Position 2, 2 reds, autopilot, auto throttle, and the FMC as amber. By this point you can check that the flight instruments are sensible and correct. So we're on the end of the runway here, so that's sensible. It's in track 269, track same as the heading because we're on the ground. So at this point now we should have TCAS off here and no V speeds because we've not entered any V speeds into the CDU. Up on the PFD, verify that the auto throttle mode is blank, the roll mode is blank, and the pitch mode is blank. AFDS status is in flight director. Ground proximity panel, flap inhibit, gear inhibit, and terrain inhibit. All the guards are closed, and the GPWS light here is extinguished. Next up, landing gear lever down, verify 3 green landing lights and no reds for a disagree. At this point we set the auto brakes to RTO. Notice then you would just about see that the auto brake disarm light lights and then extinguishes whilst it just does a quick self-test. N1 and speed refs both set to auto. Fuel flow, go to used, you can see here, so we want to move that to reset and verify that the fuel used goes to 0. Engine instruments, verify primary and secondary engine indications show existing conditions and verify there's no exceedances. So to bring up the lower engine page, press Eng. So we're checking for no exceedances. We press Sys, verify the hydraulic quantities. Pressures are low because the hydraulic electric pumps are off. Next, the cargo fire test. So the test switch down here. Press and hold. Verify that the fire warning bell sounds and the master fire warning lights are illuminated. Master fire warning light push, and push this side or this side. Verify the master fire warning lights are extinguished. The bell cancels. Next, to set the radio panel. So on this box you can only change the right hand side, and then you toggle it to the active side. So setting the radio panels, so delivery here is 12195. Actually 12193, but it will not allow us to do this because these are old boxes. And then the tower for later on is 13385. The RLS for the departure IBTS 11015, set in this side. So these are to transmit, and these are what you want to listen on. So we'll transmit on box 1, but we'll also listen on box 2. Box 2 normally set to 1215, with a handling agent in standby. And the BRI ADF ADF 414, and again we transfer from this window to the active window with the transfer. Transponder set to 2000 in standby. Transponder 1, and the altitude source from 1, because we're assuming captain's flying. Next, adjust the first officer's seat and rudder pedals, and that completes the first officer's pre-flight procedure. As I say, it's quite long-winded. In reality, once you get used to doing this, the first officer will do this within a couple of minutes. So next up, the pre-flight procedure for the captain.